Hello, my name is Celeigh Cardinal. I am a singer-songwriter from Edmonton, and welcome to the music.
Welcome to the music. This is a summer edition, and today I have a special guest co-host with me, none other than Jahaan Kanji. No relation really, but kind of. Jahaan, welcome to the show. Can
Thank
you
you for
I
having me.
You're welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so listen, people want to know who is this person, because you're replacing Greg, that people, I don't know if they hate to love him or they love to hate him, but he's he's our other regular host on here. But Jahan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you here?
Yeah, so I'm a aspiring journalist. I'm currently in my third year of the journalism program at Toronto Metropolitan University. I've always really been interested in podcasting, and this is actually my first official podcast. The only real time I've really ever dabbled in it has been through school. So this is honestly really exciting. I'm a bit nervous, but you know what? I feel like I'll get the hang of it.
You'll do fine. You'll do fine. So listen, this is a music podcast, and I need to let everybody know we're really excited today to talk to Celeigh Cardinal, an Indigenous singer-songwriter, putting out some new music coming out soon. Her album is called Boundless Possibilities. But before we get there, quickly, Jahan, uh, this is a music podcast. Tell us, who are some of your favorite artists? And I know you've been to some shows in the past. What's been maybe one or two of your favorite shows?
Um, Recently, I think last September or late August, I can't remember, but I went to the weekend concert, which was an experience. It was amazing.
Who did you go with?
And just my best friend, my sister, and my cousin.
Okay,
The concert was initially supposed to be in August or July, but there was a massive power outage or something like that. So
that's
then,
right.
uh, yep, we had to wait a few months. So I'm really into the weekend. I feel like my music taste is kind of everywhere right now. I'm really into like alternative pop. So like I listen to Lana Del Rey a lot, even though I don't like to admit it. I
Okay,
listen to a lot of like traditional pop too, so like Travis Scott, and I'm also into indie rock, so like Arctic
okay,
Monkeys. Yeah, so I would
okay.
say my music taste is kind of everywhere, but that's
All right.
currently I would say those are like the five music artists that I listen to
That is
almost every.
awesome. And so if you had uh, a dream interview, which musician, which artist would you love to interview?
Honestly, it probably wouldn't be any of these artists. I think I'd want to interview Coldplay because the first ever concert I went to was Coldplay, and I went through a massive Coldplay phase
Okay.
throughout my younger years, and I really did love them. I loved their music, and honestly, their music was not more of their older stuff was just like so amazing. It was so inspiring to listen to. So I think just to like satisfy my inner child, I'd want to interview them.
All right. Well, I will look to connect with Chris Martin, and we'll bring you on as a special co-host. But no promises. We'll see. We'll see. Well, listen,
Okay.
welcome to the show. Uh, let's chat with our special guest, Celeigh Cardinal. Celeigh, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm really good.
Awesome. Listen, people that are watching this on YouTube are going to see your friend. People that are
Hmm.
listening are going to are now going to go to YouTube and want to
Yeah.
take a look. Tell us, who is your friend here today?
This is Cami. Cami is 4+ years old, and I adopted her in December of last year.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
she's new.
she is well behaved. She's just like sitting on your lap there enjoying.
Yeah, if I just keep petting her, she
Yeah.
will be so quiet and so content. She's a dog that just needs a lot of love.
That is awesome. That is
Hmm.
wonderful. Welcome to her as well. First off, congratulations, Boundless Possibilities. I've had the opportunity to listen to over and over and show you how to love me, two great pop tunes. Congrats on the album.
Thank you. It's a huge release for me because it's taken a really long time to do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the album and putting it together. People that know you uh as a folk singer. Would that be fair? Like as a folk singer,
Yeah,
right?
it's a folk singer in the sense of like when you don't know which genre to call
Okay.
somebody,
Yeah.
they're just like they sing songs that people sing. It's folk
Yeah.
music, you know?
It's folk.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair
Yeah.
enough. I was at last night I was at the Jim Beam Indie Awards in Toronto.
Mm.
And City and Color was up for a folk award. And my friend and I look real yeah, okay, maybe, but he's in the rock
Yeah.
genre kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like a
But
catch-all kind of like it's
yeah,
if your roots singer-songwriter,
sure. Yeah.
if you're not super pop or not super rock, you're kind of just folk music.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up is, especially these two songs over and over and show you how to love me. Um, different there's and from what I understand, the whole album, there's different if I don't know, I'm not one to say, different genres, but there's different types of
Hmm.
music, there's different types of songs.
Yeah.
I wonder if was that on purpose? Is this what you wanted it to be? Is that why the album is Boundless Possibilities? Talk to us about that.
So I feel like this is something that happens to me a lot, and it's
Okay.
it's not it's not on purpose, but it has a lot to do with like the variety of influences that I have in music, and I love so many different types of music that I can't help but want to do it all. And in my very first full length album, I actually had like a country song. I had a sort of reggae influence song. It was just I don't know. It's just something that happens when I write songs. They turn out very differently, and not pop is sort of something that I just recently started exploring. So there's definitely more pop influence now too. I think coming from like Northern Alberta, I always thought that pop music wasn't something that I should do. I should be strumming a
Oh,
guitar and just sort of
yeah.
singing, my prairie songs. But when I turned 40, I was like, no, I'm just going to do whatever I want,
Yeah.
whenever I want. So that's sort of where that sits. But the the title track of Boundless Possibilities is actually it's spoken word, and I've never done that before either. It's a spoken word track over a soundscape that Matthew Cardinal, who's also from the Edmonton area,
Okay.
created, and it's it's a spoken word song about a visit that I had in a dream from a friend who had passed away. And the idea is that she came to visit me from the other side, and
Mm.
she like soared through galaxies to come and see me and to remind me that there is boundless possibilities, sort of an exploration of my own spirituality, because I used to be religious growing up and
Okay.
then stopped, and now I've kind of stepped into like exploring spirituality in a different way. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Jahaan, you wanted to go next?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, what first inspired you to pursue a career in music and how did your journey begin?
I was 4 years old the first time I sang on stage,
Four.
and it four, yeah. But
Okay.
I was raised in church, so that had a lot to do with it. It was a duet that I sang with my mother, and I couldn't read yet, and she had like drawn pictures as cues so that I would remember the lyrics of the song. So yes, I have a stage mother a little bit, someone who wanted to sing, but I performing for the first time at 4 years old, but I have been singing melodies since I was 3 months old. This is just truly like the thing that I'm supposed to do. I just, I had to pursue it because I'm miserable doing anything else. I've had other jobs and I couldn't. I love working for myself. I love making my own schedule. And I love the opportunity that I have to connect with people when I'm on stage. And I love, I don't know, sharing feelings, I guess. So it's just, yeah, the thing that I was always supposed to do.
Well, when you win a Juno Award, like you did in 2020, then the whole world knows, or all of Canada knows that yes, you were meant to make music, and congrats on that
Thank you.
as
Thank
well.
you.
You're welcome. So I want to ask you this question. I was saving this question for if I ever had the opportunity to talk to William Prince.
Mm,
But I want to ask you this question, um, I hope you'll indulge me, and I hope I don't ask this in an incorrect way. Um,
okay.
but I we know of the 60 scoop. We now know about residential schools. And so, when William Prince came out, I can't remember the name of his album, but he came out with an album that sort of um there were some hymns on there, and there were some
Mm,
prayers, and
yeah.
then you talked about singing in the church.
Hmm.
Talk to me, like, from where I sit. Again, I'm not Indigenous, I'm a settler here. But from where I sit, I find that very fascinating and very interesting. Talk to me about being Indigenous and being at a church.
Yeah, so my father's family was part of the 60s group. So
Okay.
he grew up in like white Christian foster homes.
Hmm.
So when I was young, that's how I was raised. My mother is Scottish and she was also Christian.
Okay.
So growing up in that community, like from Northern Alberta, I was one of two Indigenous families in both my school and at the church. We had pretty much zero connection to culture, and it
Okay.
was actually considered like wrong for us to indulge in any of the indigenous spirituality or ideals.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so we grew up with a lot of internalized shame, and it was
Mm.
we my brother and I we're both I have one biological brother and one adopted brother. And we both just have experienced this feeling of constantly being between worlds. And we never really feel like we belong. And I don't think we ever felt like we belonged when we were kids in church. And for me, when we left religion, it it was liberating and it gave me space to sort of reclaim my culture to what extent I could with the community that I had, and take a look at indigenous spirituality. Um, but there are a lot of folks who still were raised with religion,
Yeah.
and some of them even walk both worlds. But for me, it's never. It doesn't really work for me. But there, I have a lot of family who are still religious and also proud to be Indigenous. So yeah, it's I don't know. For me, it doesn't really work, but for some folks, it does.
Yeah. And you're right. There's we sort of always we tend to, as people, want to keep things simple and put everyone in like a box. Okay, you're Indigenous,
Hmm.
you're in this box. You're
Hmm.
you're Muslim, you're in this box. You're
Hmm.
Christian, you're in this box. But
Hmm.
there's so much diversity
Hmm.
uh in everyone's culture, and in all of these different boxes, right?
Hmm.
So that's interesting. Thank you so much for being open about that. Jahaan, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah. Kaylee, so can you share how your Indigenous background has influenced your music and songwriting, and just explain why it's so important for you to represent your Indigenous identity in your music and just your like public persona in general?
Yeah. So because I didn't grow up with culture and because I don't have a lot of connection to culture, it's basically my community is my family. And
Mm,
I would say how it's influenced my work is how it's impacted me as a person, both like having shame for it, and the reclamation of it. And that journey has always sort of been reflected in the life decisions that I've made, you know, poor choices, self-sabotaging, and then moving forward, like changing that and growing from that and healing. I write about myself, my experiences. I write about, falling in love or falling out of love. I write about addiction. I write about home. So it's not like specifically, I don't speak to any sort of specifics, but it is just the
mm,
reflection of like my experience as an Indigenous person. But that is why it's important to have a diverse representation of Indigenous people. When I was like 20 years old, I was playing music, and there were times when I would get booked for something, and because my name is Celeigh Cardinal, I would get booked for something and show up with like a crappy classical guitar and have a bunch of sad girl songs. And they would be expecting somebody to show up with a drum and sing something
oh,
traditional or do, and I would,
okay.
so I had to learn to sort of vet people and their expectations of me for performances in order to like book myself well and not have really awkward performances all the time. But it's also important that people know, like, the thing about colonization is that it worked in Canada, and it
Mm,
it took a lot of Indigenous people away from their culture. And so there's a lot of people like me who are out here, like, you know dealing with racism, but
yeah.
not necessarily connected to a community or culture, and we're stuck in between. And I think it's important that I speak to that experience authentically and don't show up pretending to be, you know this other Indigenous version that people expect. And I think that's what's different in music these days is I don't get booked like that anymore. Times have changed, and we see people doing non-traditional music. We see Indigenous people in all genres, and I think it's one of the most amazing things. And because I've been doing this for like 20 years, I've watched it happen, and it's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Kaylee, early, just not too long ago, talked about you winning the 2020 Juno Award. Um, did that did that change anything for you? Did that open doors for you? Did it put you in a that word again in a box?
Mhm.
How did that impact you?
So it was different because it was 2020, so there wasn't actually
Oh
like
my
the
God, that's
whole
right. I
big
totally
Junos
forgot.
experience.
We were like, yeah, that
Yeah,
was like the
so
online version, wasn't it?
it was.
Oh
And
my.
the thing about me is like I step into my extrovert shoes when I'm on stage, and I
Yeah.
am, since I've been there since I was 4, it's a very comfortable space for me. It's easy to be vulnerable in front of a whole bunch of people as opposed to maybe like 2 or 3 people in front of you. And I inherently am a shy person. So the idea of the Junos had me filled with anxiety. I was
Oh my goodness.
so
Yeah.
excited to be nominated. It's amazing. But I was so anxious about winning because I knew, because this has been like a 20-year journey for me, if I won that Juno, I was going to stand there and cry for 10 minutes in front of everybody and not be able to get a word out. I
Oh
knew that
my.
was what I would do because I'm a crier anyways. So when it was canceled, I had just flown back from playing a festival in Germany, and I was jet lagged, and I had to like just take a flight to Saskatoon, and I was in a hotel room, and I was there by myself. And when it was canceled, I was like, did I do this because I really wanted this to not happen? Because I just want to go home and go to bed. But it ended up being amazing because it was live streaming, and I was sitting with my parents and my family and my best friends and my son when I found out. And it was like the best way to receive it for
That's
sure.
amazing.
So that was a really beautiful experience. I'm now, because I've, broken the seal, I'm ready to win more, and I'll be okay making a
All
speech.
right.
But what it did was, that was a year that a lot of musicians were not able to work. Nobody was working,
That's
everybody
right.
was locked down. But because I had won, I was sort of on the top of everybody's mind. And I actually had a very busy year, which was good and bad, because I also had a lot of tragedy that year. So I was like
Mm,
pushing through to try to capture the momentum of this thing, and
yeah.
sort of putting my own stuff aside, which led to an eventual burnout. But yeah, so it was like, it's a roller coaster. It was good and bad.
Oh, that's a fascinating story. Um, as I was researching your latest album, Boundless Possibilities, um, you talked about tragedy. I learned
Mm.
that, two tragic events um happened in your life, and I'm listening, especially to show you how to love me, and I go, this is like a an upbeat pop tune.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and and here I'm expecting, okay, there's going to be some dark music.
Mm. Mm.
Um, Talk to me about the choices that you made in making this album based on, what you recently went through.
Well, Over and Over is a song that I wrote with the Brothers Landreth in 2019.
Okay.
And Show You How to Love Me is a song that I wrote with my bass player in 2023. The songs of this album have been written over many years, but you haven't heard the really sad ones yet. I'll
Okay.
say that.
Okay. Okay.
The very first song is talking about my friend who passed away, who died by suicide. The second song is called Every Day, and it's a song, when I first wrote it, the main line I wrote was, I'm leaving this grieving without leaving you. Because I was
Mm,
thinking, trying to capture that feeling of when, because I had been grieving people that I love very much. And I was trying to capture this feeling of when you're no longer just sad all the time and you start to experience joy, but you sort of, there's a bit of guilt that comes along with that,
yeah.
because you feel like you're moving on, and it's about letting go but still holding on. So that's one of the songs that really, it kind of speaks to grief in sort of an all encapsulating way. And then the very last song on the album is a song that I wrote about my son's father. And that song, I really just sat down at the piano probably a month after he passed away, and just wrote the entire song from start to finish. And I the recording on the album is a recording that I did on my phone, because I have never been able to sing that song all the way through without crying ever again. So
Wow.
there is a lot of feeling in it, but the thing about, when you lose somebody that you love so much, you remember how much you need to treasure the relationships and the people that you do have. So it's like this deep grief also reminds you of like the deepest joy and love, and it helps you experience things even deeper. So it's sort of beautiful.
That's amazing.
Um, Kaylee, so you had said that singing and being on the stage has always kind of been your calling. But what was it like to perform for the first time at such a young age? What were those feelings that you were like overwhelmed with, and how did it just feel overall?
I think I would say probably the first thing was, and it's such a long time ago, almost 40 years ago. But like, I know that it was, a people pay attention to me when I'm up here. I know that there was like, oh, everybody's looking at me. Isn't that special? But it's also, I've always been a very emotional person, really sort of connected to people emotionally. And I think that seeing joy in anyone's face, just the fact that I'm the novelty of like a 4-year-old on stage, giving anybody joy, like fills my heart so much. And it does feel like a spiritual calling to me,
That's
if that
awesome.
answers the full question. Yeah.
Yeah. Kaylee, we have a segment called Lost Venues.
Mm.
So this is a venue that doesn't exist anymore, but that you've played at, that you've performed at. And there is either a funny story, a sad story, an ugly story, a horror story. I'm wondering if you have a lost venue story for us today.
Um, hmm. Sorry, did you say it doesn't exist anymore, or
Yeah,
I just don't?
which is why it's lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, oh my goodness. It's funny because there's so many I have played in so many places that I can barely like I also have a terrible memory. Like I'm the oldest and my younger sister is the person who reminds me of everything all the time because I can't hold all the memories. But I do remember playing in Waterton, which is in southern Alberta, and we played at the Waterton Opera House. And basically I just know that that place was haunted, and it they don't have shows there anymore, but I remember sort of being in like the back area, and you know that feeling of just when like the hair stands
Yeah, yeah.
on end on your arms and you feel something sort of brush by you. Well, that's what happened to me there, and maybe it was just the wind. Who knows? It depends on what you believe in, but for me, I was like, I'm never playing here again. And then the place actually closed down. So, yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah. But it was a beautiful venue. It was like an old movie theater that had been turned into a music venue. And it was very nice, but I was scared.
That is awesome. That is
Mm.
funny. Um, what are you listening to these days? I don't know if you do any long, you live in northern Alberta, maybe that you go on long drives to get to places or to get down to different shows. But what do you
Hmm.
listen to when you're in the car? What do you listen to when you're just, around home doing stuff? When you take the dog for a walk? I don't know if you put in earbuds or whatnot, but who should we be
Yeah,
checking out?
I found myself listening to more like comedy podcasts
Oh
lately.
yeah?
I mean,
Okay.
I listen to music. But I would have to say that when I look at the albums that are right there by my record player, one of them is Hello Nasty by the Beastie Boys. I
All
have,
right, here we go.
yeah, Sky Blue Sky, Wilco. I believe, I actually think it's possible that the Amy Grant Christmas album from 1980 is also sitting there. And this is by my record player. I have a record player, like I have stand for the vinyl over here, but apparently I've listened to that Amy Grant album in the last like 6 months, which is really weird, but I guess I love Christmas music. And I listen to a lot of I listen to a lot of pop music, and I also have been listening to the song "Show Me Love" by Robin like on repeat lately.
Okay.
So I'm kind of all over the place.
All right. I love the
Yeah,
Beastie Boys as the first thing they came. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. I love them. They're
That's
I was a super fan for sure.
nice. Yeah. Caleigh Cardinal, this has been such a fun chat. Thank you so much for being here. If people want to uh, get your album, they want to learn more about you, they want to come to a show.
Hmm.
Is there a website or one place where they can go to get all that info?
Absolutely. It is my website. It's kayleighcardinal.com. The catch is you have to know how to spell my name.
All
But
right,
I
let's do
think if
that.
you spell something sort of like that in Google, I might pop up. But my name is spelled Celeigh Cardinal. So it's my very ethnic. Kayleigh's very Scottish, and Cardinal is very Métis. So it's really shows who I am.
KayleighCardinal.com.
Mm-hmm.
People should go there to get Boundless Possibilities, to see where you're playing next, and to learn more about you and what you're up to. Thank you so
You
much,
bet.
Caleigh.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thanks for the chat.
You're welcome. What do you think, Caleigh, of our new co-host? How did she do? What do you think?
Incredible. I loved the questions. They were hard hitting, but I liked
Thank you.
them.